Okay, well, hello everybody. My name is John Wilkes. I have the privilege of being the Chief Executive of the Institute of Health and Social Care Management, and you have had the wisdom to embark on a great journey today, which is to look at the whole topic of allyship at this special IHSCM roundtable meeting, courtesy of our Equality, Diversity and Inclusivity Special Interest Group. I am thrilled, therefore, to be able to welcome to today's roundtable event Daithì C. Daithì is the core member of the LGBTQI plus Dementia Advisory Group. We have the one and only Peter Ramrayka, a great friend and very loyal member of the Institute for many, many years. Peter is a fellow of the Institute and the managing director of Guycon Healthcare Management Consultancy Limited. And we have the also, and it's kind of difficult now because I've got to say one and only Chand Kaur as well. Chand, it's just lovely to have you with us. You are also a very loyal and great supporter of the Institute. For those of you who don't know, Chand is CEO of PCOS Relief and Director of Number One Healthcare. So look, folks, today, talking about allyship, how you use allies, I'm guessing, to help you to stand up for yourself and to stand up to bias or ridicule or unpleasantness in the workplace and so on. And I just wonder whether any of you would be prepared to just start first and try to give us an understanding of what allyship means to you. How about Daithì? How about you start? Would that be okay?
Absolutely. And thank you, John, and everyone here. And I have to tell you that allyship as a person living with dementia from the LGBTQI community, or the queer community, as I prefer to use as shorthand, allyship means everything to me. Because, if you're all in the UK, I think you are, the queer community, particularly the transgender community, is under siege, not just in the UK, but globally. And for people like me living with dementia, it's hugely problematic. Who can I trust to, provide inclusive care? I could not find anyone that I could truly trust in queer-centric dementia delivery in my home country, which is Ireland, even though I have an American accent. I grew up in the US, but I had to flee my home country of Ireland, and now I'm in Belgium getting queer inclusive medical and dementia care because they have the political will to deliver it. So allyship means everything to me, and I'm glad to be among you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Daithì. Peter, you memorably addressed this group and the retired members group recently about your experience as a young man making your way in the United Kingdom, having arrived here. Could you give us some understanding of the sort of support that you were able to garner from people who were prepared to stick up for you and support you in your endeavors?
Thank you, John, and thank you for the invitation. I would skip, for the purpose of this gathering, the experiences in the Air Force from 61 to 70. I'll go to the experience when I joined the NHS in 1970. At that time, people of color did not enter general management because the feeling was people of color in the United Kingdom at that time would have a rough ride in the general management. I joined University College Hospital Group at a place called National Temperance Hospital, which doesn't exist any longer. What I found in allyship, my allyship was a different emphasis than one which was outlined just now by Daithì. I was looked after in a way by the chief executive of UCH, a man called Gordon Marsh. he became the ombudsman or the health service ombudsman at one juncture. And that support gave me a tremendous backing as I progressed through my initial career in the NHS. And
can I just ask, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Peter, just for the sake of clarification, and it might be interesting to people. Would you say that he found you or you found him? I'm just interested in how we go about finding these people who are prepared to support us.
Yes, I think it acts both ways. But at that time, I think because I was entering into a new environment from the medical RAF environment into the NHS environment, I was, I suppose, a little unusual. So Mr. Marsh, I wouldn't call him Gordon in those days, Mr. Marsh ensured that I was put into a program of training at that time, the Regional Health Authority at that time. So in a way, he found me and offered that support. It wasn't entirely just because of me. He felt that young people coming into the general management should be encouraged, should be guided in what to do. So it was a case of Mr. Marsh, Gordon, identifying that I had some potential, and if that potential was nurtured, it might blossom into something more productive. And I don't believe that he did that purely because I was from an ethnic background. He did that because it was a combination of things. He felt that I had the ability to benefit from guidance.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter. Chad, I'll ask you the same question, if I may. Look, you've been a really important supporter of the Institute for some time now, and I'm interested in your own experiences in terms of, how when you first entered the profession of care and health, what did you experience, and how did you find people who are prepared to encourage you and tell you that you were good, and tell you that you should go for it, and tell you that there isn't a ceiling to what you can achieve? Where did you find these people? What was the mechanism that you adopted?
I think the mechanism that I adopted was, firstly, allyship is extremely important because it builds an all-together workforce. And that's something that we need to do in order to raise awareness and build communication. Now, when I first started in the healthcare sector, I actually came from a law background. So I worked with international people, with international companies. So I had that sense of working with people from different minorities, people with disabilities and stuff. But when I entered the healthcare sector, the healthcare sector welcomes a large amount of ethnic minorities and people from all different race, religions and backgrounds. So we're very multicultural to step into the workforce. And being a female to step into a senior position into the healthcare did take a lot of guts, because not only am I trying to progress for myself, but I'm also trying to show leadership for other females who wishes to come into the director roles or the CEO roles. So I think building the awareness and also having that passion that you want to make a stand, not just for yourself, but for the people who also aim to be in your position, with a clear communication, with clear dialogues, and to say that I want to not only just help myself, but I also want to help the group of people and also encourage other communities. If I can do it, they can also do that. And that's a clear message that we have. And that's the allyship that you would have, because you're building the awareness, you're breaking the stigma, whether the stigma is, females can't be in leaderships, or, ethnic minorities, or LGBTQ, or disability people even. You need to break that stigma. And if you have the clear communication and the clear passion to do it, you will build that allyship to take it forward. So I think that's what I did.
That's a great answer, Chand. Thank you. I'm going to go back to Daithì and just say, look, somebody has to go first when you're trying to build allyship. You know, when you're trying to build a support base that's mutually supportive. So, you know, they support you, you support them. Somebody has to go first and say, you know, this is what I stand for. This is what I believe in. This is the help that I'm after. Here's my vulnerabilities that I'm a little bit anxious about. And then you kind of, once you've done that kind of acts as the nectar for the bees, really, who then gather around you and say, right, we're up for that, you know, we'll help you. Let's have a quid pro quo here, but we're up for that. Do you think that's a fair kind of assessment of how you go about doing this? You've just got to be brave enough to say, this is what I believe in, and here's the help that I'm after.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. And yes, I have heard that word applied to me, particularly about brave. And I don't think of myself that way. But when I reflect on it, absolutely, I'm advocating for myself, navigating an intensely heterosexual, heteronormative care environment. These are good people. Every person on the screen, I presume to be, I expect that to be so. But then I look a little closer and I see two people on the screen, Jade and who is it? Magwar, is that who it is? With pronouns in parentheses. That's a clue for someone like me who is gender variant, someone who has done sufficient cultural homework to understand that is enormously welcoming, just like the rainbow flag, you know, well, that looms large over my shoulder, you know. I don't want a little bit of queerness in my care. I want it front and center, absolutely. And that requires cultural humility on the part of people who may hold judgments around queerness and all. Oh, thank you, Magwin. I think you're my new best friend. Thank you so much. So anyway, I'm living with dementia, and you know, that's a journey on its own. I'm continuing with my own gender journey here in Belgium, because I couldn't get that support in my home country of Ireland. So, I've adopted a take no prisoners stance in my care journey. So love me or hate me, this is who I am. And I'm grateful. That's what I meant about allyship. I'm sorry, John.
There is a courage to that, isn't there? Whether you acknowledge it or not. You know,
exactly.
Not everybody who needs help is prepared to sort of cultivate it, basically.
There's no victim here. Exactly right. Exactly right. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I know that I'm among allies, and I'm so grateful for it. Thanks. Yeah.
Peter, could you expand on what I've been talking about? How do we help people who might need some support to actually be bold and brave enough to stand up and acknowledge that fact, you know, so that then potential allies might come forward?
Yes, I'll confine my remarks really to the NHS, a little bit of social services, but also look at it within the context of society as large. I think many people from an ethnic background, regardless of the political affiliation, would look at Britain of 2022 and say, haven't we made a significant difference in the world? We have a prime minister from an ethnic background. We have two major offices of state, foreign secretary and home secretary, from an ethnic background. Now that sends a message in a way to all in society that you can achieve what you're aiming at with determination. Now, there is a view that perhaps those positions and those office holders are a selected few, and they do not represent society as a whole. But my take is that the confidence in a way that it gives people who are facing racial discrimination in particular will see that society is changing. Now, coming back to the situation of allyship in the context of work in the NHS, I think as one develops, concurrently with developing yourself and your appreciation of your colleagues, you have to be careful in how you address the issues that you are facing. By that I mean, nowadays everyone looks at if you make an application, they look at what you have supported in Twitter and Facebook. It might be wrong, but that's how assessments are made. And if you like an LGBTQ person or some comment that is made, it's automatically assumed that you have a broader view of life. You are sympathetic to it. So I think as you progress your career, in wherever you are, but in particular in the NHS, social services and so on, your allyship is developed on two bases. One, your own ability to overcome it, and to identify within your cohort of people those whom you can be associated. So you have a champion to help you along the way. Now, the alternative is you know, speak up guardians and that, you know, the process, the statutory process that is there. But I think if we're giving advice to people starting the career, they should understand that there are dynamics at play, and it's developing an attitude as you develop yourself. Over the years, I have become more conscious of the fact that I'm an advocate, I'm a champion, because I've acquired those skills concurrently as I develop my career. So I think we must say to colleagues who are starting a journey or midway in a journey, to recognize that the NHS has changed tremendously. The NHS Confederation is doing tremendous work on EDI. And I feel colleagues who are listening should be aware that they can join the NHS Federation Leadership EDI program. And there is a wealth of information there that will help to assist them in the journey that they're undertaking, and assist them with proper information, guide them, have various discussions, forum, and so on. And it's a tremendous change in allyship. You have support now in the NHS. You have support, you have a cohort of people who are aware now of the need to recognize the diversity that we have in the workforce. The NHS success is based on recognizing that diversity and using the diversity to ensure that we provide proper patient care.
All right, thank you, Pete. I'm going to have to cut across you a tiny bit there because we're just running a tiny bit short of time. Chand, one of the things that's always struck me about allyship is you tend to receive what you're prepared to give. So one of the very best ways of cultivating a group of supporters is to go out of your way to help them. You know, find people who may be vulnerable, stand up for people who may be subject to unpleasantness, be seen to be that rock on which others in perhaps a similar situation can rely. And I think if you do that, then you tend to attract people who admire you and want to help you as well. Do you think that's a fair observation?
I think that's absolutely spot on, John, what you have said. There's one thing that people say about me, which I'm very blessed, is what I do is I'm very passionate, because when I speak about something, I can go on and on and on, and I can try to sell what I speak about. And I'm very happy about that. The one thing that I do is, obviously, I'm chief executive of PCOS. Now, for those who don't know, that PCOS is a health condition that affects females with their fertility. It's #1 leading cause to fertility. I'm Asian, I'm British Sikh, and I am doing this. I'm supporting ethnic minorities on such a sensitive health condition, something that can be classified as taboo within these ethnic minorities. However, in order to make a change, I'm not here to change somebody's religion, somebody's culture, somebody's teaching. I'm here to provide that information that can save somebody's life. I'm not here to harm you. I'm just an advice system. That's all I'm here to do. And if you're here to support somebody for the right doing, any right that will happen will take time. It will have a lot of backlash. However, the more right you are, the more passionate you are, you will build that allyship. It takes one person. The journey might be long. However, if you are still advocating what is right, that truth will always be right. There's nothing more that you can't turn a right into wrong. That right will only get righter. And this is what we need to be doing. There's millions of people in this world, and there's millions of opinions, views, thoughts, and whatever. However, if you're true and you stick with your community in order to break the stigma, in order to get away from the negativity, then you are going to be moving into the right direction. It's all about building the awareness. If you don't have awareness, nobody's going to be talking about it. You're still going to be in a negative limelight. And this is what we need to be doing. It doesn't matter where you come from, how you speak, what you wear, what you look like. If you're going to be making a right change in the right direction for the right thing, you just need to keep on doing it, and everybody will start to follow through. You will have.
Okay, I'm going to have to cut across you because I've just had the pinging telephone which says I've got to go. So I'm going to leave the Q&A now to Jay. Can I just say thank you, Daithì, Peter, Chand. I'm so sorry I have to disappear. I hope you understand. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. So at this point in the conversation, what I'd like to do is invite our panelists to contribute something about the best practice experience that they've had that's been part of their health and care or part of their journey as the person that you are today. Daithì, would you like to start first, and then I'll move to Peter and then to Chand?
Yes, and I'm not sure I heard all of that, Jade. However, when you were mentioning, I heard you use the word backlash, and what I believe that we're witnessing, for me, a lifetime of, I'm part of the Stonewall generation. I spent my life, advocating on behalf of my queerness and community. And as Peter acknowledged about the ethnic communities in Great Britain, how far we have come in the last 50 or 60 years. It is brilliant. And then, how whimsical the universe can be. So we do have these ethnic prime ministers and cabinet people and all, and they are among some of the most rabidly homophobic, transphobic. Well, if that isn't the cosmic laugh, I don't know what is, So how do we deal with that? By allyship and intersectionality and coming together, particularly around health issues and all. So I get a sense of safety and inclusion among you, but I have to, now my challenge is, I'll put this to the audience. If you're a TERF, hold your hand up. A trans exclusionary radical feminist, or gender critical. If you find me, my mere existence to be offensive to you, please raise your hand. I'd like to know. Thanks.
Peter, have you got an experience that you've had of where people have been an ally to you and they've done it well, and that you were aware that they were an ally?
Yeah, I have, and I explained earlier, I had early in my career, the chief executive or the house governor, as it's called then, University College Hospital, Gordon Marsh. But most recently, what I had was a development, the clinical commissioning group of Southeast London was merging the 6 boroughs in Southeast London was merging into one clinical commission group for the whole of Southeast London. So we're bringing together a lot of diverse people of different experiences and so on. And one of the things that I suggested, and which was agreed by the board, was buddying relation. And that buddying relationship, we broke it down into 3 or 4 individuals, and we had buddying information and buddying discourse. And colleagues, that was one of the most invigorating and liberating experiences, because we then got to understand each other a little bit deeper. The consequence of that was that at board meetings and so on, we were talking more as colleagues and understanding where people were coming from and the different views that they were expressing. And all the views that are represented in this discourse were there. And one got to appreciate a little bit more and help in discussion. So for me, buddying in organizations is one of the key aspects which should be developed.
Absolutely. I was having a conversation with another member of the Institute prior to this call today, and we were talking about faith, and we were talking about religion, and we were talking about how to celebrate your culture within your workplace. And we need allies beyond gender, beyond ethnicity, beyond faith, and everything. We need allies that are those that are the same age as us. So we have a multi-generational and multi-background workforce that are coming from different experiences, and storytelling is so powerful. So even just having somebody to have a conversation with about your life can create those allies. So like you've just said, Peter, having a buddy would be like that friend, but beyond a friend, because they have an understanding of who you are within work and beyond, and they can support you if you've got any issues in work as well.
Yeah.
Chandy,
what a joy it would be if a board consisted of the core of what we have on the screen.
Yes.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Chandy, I come to you. John would cut off what you said because he was due to go to another workshop. Unfortunately, he's double booked today. You were talking about how you help those within your community around the polycystic ovary syndrome, and that you are an ally to them. Have you had anybody be an ally to you in the work that you are doing to support other people? Because surely you need support yourself to deliver those services and that support.
Definitely, I've had allies from individuals as well as other organisations in order to build the awareness, because you do need, in order to raise awareness, it needs to come from the people itself. So that is my allies, because we're trying to get shared lived experience people to be involved in this and whatever we're talking about. And then we will have the support from the NHS or even private organisations to come in and then support what we are talking about in order to build it on a bigger platform. But there's one thing that I do want to say: in order as an organisation to build allyship and to build the awareness, you need to really have your structure of your company and your workforce set out. When people search your company up or search you as an individual, they need to know what your principles are from the beginning, because everything really starts once it's at the beginning of it. and then you can work towards it. So you could, whether you can have that in your training, whether you can have that in your company policies, whether you can have that in your mission statement or your aims and your vision and everything like that. You need to have that from the beginning. And what's very good is, again, what I've mentioned at the beginning, we work in a healthcare sector and it's full of diverse people. It's full of multicultures, multi-beliefs, faiths, even gender categories, everything like that. There is so many people, and that's what's very refreshing to work with, because you're learning new things as you go. And the more you learn, the more allyships you build, and you have to be willing to learn and open up in order to welcome the change that is going to happen. And again, we speak about, about politics, like all the first ethnic minority prime minister. That's a good thing. However, more needs to be done. Now we say that it should be a female ethnic minority, or it should be somebody from the LGBTQ community to be prime minister. This is the way forward to go. We want to welcome and accept everybody and all the changes that come with it.
Perfectly put, thank you. And that's the purpose of this group, us as an institute providing this access to like-minded people, the same views, same experiences, or those that have had same ethnic backgrounds but have had different experiences, bring everybody together. This is an online community, this Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Special Interest Group, and it's conversations like this that then have practical implementing purpose outside of this virtual space where we're all meeting, so we can have that change, where we can have allies within our workplace. At this point in the conversation, I can see that Dudley is active in our chat, and he's talking about having a seat at the table, and he's given a case study example. I just wondered whether, Dudley, you'd be able to join us on the screen for a moment just to tell us about the Yvonne Coghill CBE case around George Floyd's death. If I can bring on screen, Dudley is one of the co-chairs of this group, who I'm delighted is able to make it today.
Thank you very much, Jade, and welcome everyone. I think it's such a great sort of topic and subject that gets missed. And I think a lot of the time we talk about inclusion, diversity, but we also feel, and I think what's important is what can be done. How can you support those from different backgrounds, characteristics? And I think being an ally is something that we can all play a part in. And I think we can all have our own journey. It may start, and I think starting things such as awareness is really key. And I think even myself, I'm forever on a journey, and your knowledge can always grow. I was listening to a talk yesterday on those from the golden generation and about them being sexually active. And that, you would think about when we talk about things such as sex in its subject, it's almost a taboo to talk about in those of a certain age. Well, it's still prevalent, and inclusive and understanding all of these things are really important. And it can work from religion, it can work from so many things. There's not one size fits all. But I think the allies, the learning, but I think the thing that and the reason why I brought having a seat at the table is the action that is taken from there, because there's lots of sort of events and lots of things that are happening, but then what's the action? What's the take home? What are you going to do once you leave? I think it's also important to understand you can do something, and even if it's doing it quietly in the background, doing something is really a start. And then going back to what I said is having a seat at the table is also helpful. The final thing which I mentioned Yvonne Cogill's 7 sort of steps is because it's also being authentic, because people can be an ally, but they're not really an ally. And I think that's the disappointing thing. It almost become the fashion to wear a certain costume or certain flag or go to an event, but how authentic are they? Once it stops, do they just put it away and wait till next year for maybe a pride event or the month of supporting those from different cultures? Really, being an ally is an everyday thing. And I think that's something as well that we can add to this. It's not just for today, it's consistently. So those are some of my points. So there's so much more that I could add, but I think it's great. And I think allies is why we're all here. We're all allies in some shape or form. intersectionality. It's not just one, it could be many different things. Our differences bring us together, but they also make us stronger. Thank you.
Well said, Dudley. I'm so pleased you were able to join us today. We're at the part of the conversation where I'd like to invite the audience to ask some questions to our panel, make comments on their experiences and best practice that they've seen within their organisation or from other allies. I can see that Morgan's got her hand up. I'm just going to bring Morgan on the screen so you can speak to our panelists and they can see you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I put in the chat that, you know, being an ally isn't enough. It's so easy to say that you're an ally, to express something openly, but actually to look at yourself, to actually critique yourself, to look at all the things you might be doing. Because, you know, I'm brought up in a certain time, in a certain way, with certain people. I'm going to make mistakes. I try not to, but I'm going to. There is no point being an ally if you're not going to do something about it. So you know, being an ally to Black and ethnic minority people, frankly, it's not worth anything if you're not anti-racist. You have to be anti-racist. You have to be fully inclusive. You know, you can't say about somebody, you know, who is particularly going through some kind of change in their gender and not at least try and understand and try and be open to it. I mean, in our organisation over the last 2 years, we had a BAME sort of Black and ethnic minority sort of network. We had a women's network, but not really. We've got a disability and inclusion network. We've had LGBTQI plus network, who has been a lot quieter recently, unfortunately. But prior to COVID, they were doing things like they put a film on and got a speaker in. So there's lots of things that our organisation does, and they're actually coming out now and saying this year, we are anti-racist, which I think makes a big difference. We're changing some of our policies specifically because, of course, you know, of course, people don't want to say, oh, actually, yeah, no, I am. You know, there are things that I think about. I am racist in some of my practices. Nobody wants to think that about themselves. Nobody's going to put the hand up, hopefully. I mean, they probably do, actually. But, you know, is going to say, oh, yeah, no, I'm a TERF. Of course, you know, I want to exclude people because I don't think they're real people and I don't believe what they're telling me about themselves. Nobody wants to be called those things, but actually actively in your life and in the policies of your organisation, do they need reviewing to be changed? And I think, you know, we have to do more than just say we're an ally.
Thank you, Morgan. Is that something we could do as a group to be implementive of that, to be instrumental in starting that change? I know that it's starting to happen in organisations now, but is there something that we can do to help push that along and reach other organisations who may not be as active in their statements? As you said, you know, we put our hands up, we're against this, we are anti-racist and we won't stand for this. Can we help other organisations be able to get to that point, do you think?
I think this is a good example of showing examples. I've not quite used the right words there, but I think case studies and examples, just people generally sharing good practice is probably helpful. So if people share their good practice and then potentially sort of little bite-sized things from staff and patients to say, this is the difference it made. You know, yes, you've always been doing this, but since this has been implemented, look at the difference it's made. We now have, we don't have an interview panel without somebody who's Black and ethnic minority on the panel. Now, in Cornwall, that'd probably be quite difficult. We're in Northwest London. We serve an area which is probably some of the most ethnically and culturally diverse areas in England. So you won't be able to apply it everywhere as easily, I don't think. But there is absolutely no excuse in organisations that are in London. So I worked at UCLH for a long time, but a very long time ago. And when I moved out more to a more local hospital, it was very evident to me that this was one of the most diverse places I'd ever worked. But also from the point of view of having women there. There were more men in central London. There were more white people in central London in the higher, in higher management. So, and maybe they don't have as many sort of diverse people working throughout the rest of the organisation, very large organisation, and it may be very different now, 10 years later. But at the time, it wasn't represented. I think that's really important. You sometimes have to do, the positive things. You might have to say, like some of the sort of political organisations have said, right, we're only accepting women for this particular role. You have to do positive discrimination sometimes. And I know that's not popular, but it at least needs talking about.
Thank you so much for your contribution, Morgan. We've got other guests in our audience, and I wondered if they would like to say something about what they've witnessed as good practice, or if they have a question for the panel. I can't see anybody with their hands up. At this point in the conversation, then, what I'd like to say is, as an institute, we have members from across health and social care, the third sector. We have active military members. We cover the whole of the UK. We even have members from outside of the UK. And a lot of those members interact either on a regular basis or an ad hoc basis with this group. So this group is very valuable in what we can achieve as an institute and beyond, feeding outwards. So what I wanted to do is ask the panel, just give a couple of minutes to think about your responses to this question. What would you like to see happen for yourself in terms of your background and your experiences? What would you like to see improved? And what do you think the group could do to help achieve that? I'd like to come to Chand first. Mix it up a little bit, because I always come to Chand last, so I'm coming to Chand first now.
I think what we, as an individual, I think we need to, or what I would like to see more of is, of course, female leadership, and also more of talking about other things as opposed to ethnic minority. Ethnic minority is one that is, the main topic. Yes, it's so important, but I want to also see other topics that are maybe discriminating to others, or even talking about, the inclusion communities, and every other communities on a wider platform as well. Because yes, ethnic minorities aren't targeted, they are maybe the top targeted, but there's also other things and other groups and communities that are targeted. So I think as a group, we should really look at maybe speaking about, maybe one community and maybe every month or every second month or something like that. So we're starting to build the awareness and getting, communication and dialogues opened. And I mean, again, this institute is full of experienced members, whether it's individuals or whether it's organizations. And I'm sure that with everybody's input, and even having I think at the start of the meeting, we said a contact list, who to contact for certain information. Is just like having a HR department, going to one point of contact to saying, I need this type of support, how can I do it? And even support in terms of company structure, company policies, what should we be including in our company policies to say, this is what we represent, this is our ethos, this is our, missions and our aims as our company or as an individual. And I think that's what we need to be talking more about, because the more we talk about things, the more we highlight the negatives, they will start to turn into positives. And especially, again, like I mentioned, the more right you talk about, the only right it will get. So
thank you, Chand. Daithì, you had your hand up.
Sorry about that, but indeed I have an agenda and I'm pursuing it. Here in Flanders, Belgium, where I live, there's an NGO, it's called Rainbow Ambassadors, that advocates on behalf of older LGBTQI folks, and this is their manifesto. Unfortunately, it's in the Dutch language, and I'm still struggling to learn my Dutch, but I'm working at it, and people are wonderfully, wonderfully affirming and welcoming to me here, and I'm so grateful for it. So things like being safe. When I first came here to Belgium with my general practitioner, one of the first questions she asked me was, which pronouns do I prefer to use? That would never have happened in my home country of Ireland because they don't get that kind of training, but they do here. So training healthcare workers in inclusion for everyone, and doing the cultural homework necessary to make that happen. Now I'm at a place, in my health journey and all, I need safe and affirming inclusive housing. And that's a conversation that I'm pursuing here in Flanders, but also in the UK. There are places, Tonic Housing in London is the first in the UK to be LGBTQI inclusive care home or retirement place. There's one in Manchester. The conversation is taking place down in Brighton. So as challenged as the UK is, and it is, there are some good things happening around, I've heard it's called the postal code lottery. So anyway, that's my agenda. Thanks.
And what do you think the group could do to help in that situation, to help make sure that you are asking those questions about what pronouns would you like to use? How do you even pronounce your name would be another one. Those two basic things is how you should start a conversation with everybody, regardless of who they are and all that.
I'm going to put in the chat to everyone the web address it's based in the UK of the LGBT plus dementia advisory group that I belong to. And there are resources that address exactly what you talked about, and they're free. Free is good. So I'll make sure I put that in to share with anyone who's interested in becoming a better ally. So I'll do that right now, okay?
Perfect, thank you, that'd be great. What we'll do as well is update our dedicated special interest group page on the website to include resources like Daithì's going to include in the chat in a moment, so that we can signpost those that may have those questions. Thinking about, Chand, what you've just said about inviting communities to come along, we have monthly meetings. We could definitely reach out to those groups. We heard from the Opening Doors LGBTQIA plus charity earlier this month. We have a conversation coming up on the 14th of December, which is the next meeting of this group, which will be the last of the year, with Daithì Viflani, who is a Hindu, and she's come to talk about her faith, her religion, and the way of life of Hindus, and what it's like to integrate into the workforce and be accepted and have an inclusive workforce. So that'll be a really exciting event. We're also going to have an event in the new year talking about what Dudley said earlier on, and also Morgan, around how to have sexuality conversations. We've got Dr. Kate Allett, who's developed our How to Build Resiliency short course, coming to talk to us about that, and her colleague, Dr. Claire Lynch, details of which I will share after this meeting. We're just in the process of finalising the themes of that session, but the overall topic will be how to have sexuality conversations to help people feel inclusive, those who are accessing care, but those who are delivering care as well. And finally, Peter, I'll come to you last but not least. Your experiences and what the group can do to be supportive of that. What would you like to see happen next?
Firstly, I endorse the views which have been expressed by my fellow panelists. I think your question is, what can we do as individuals, and what can we do, or what can IHSCM do as an organization? I think on the basis of the discussions we have had, we've demonstrated a variety of experiences and so on, which would be useful to capture. And I think in our individual ways, we are, in the light of what has been said, champions in our respective areas. So that's the first thing. As individuals, I think we should get a deeper understanding of the variety of areas of concern. As far as the IHSCM IHSCM is concerned. I've got to remember the acronym because the acronym have changed quite a bit over the years.
It has, it has.
I wouldn't go into that. I believe the work that is being done by the NHS Confederation is directly relevant to what we're seeking to do. And they are paid people. They are getting the benefit of research, and they're making a difference. A recent conference highlighted that they've got 3 streams: the BME leadership, the health and care for women in Leaders Network, and health and care for LGBTQT as well. So we have a national organization, fully funded, with research capacity and capability and resources. And I think it would be beneficial for us to keep track of the development and perhaps get a representative from this group logged in to one of those groups. Yeah, the 3 principal groups. I think that would be the first thing. I believe that the Institute will be mindful of its resources, will be a better place in signposting. Having the variety of presentations that you've outlined, Jade, that is useful. You have Hindus one there, you have Muslims, and the various variety. So a program of presentations as we go on into the year, conscious that what you're doing is educating and alerting and exposing. People have the opportunity to hear of a variety of opinions, and the advocacy is then based on an informed basis, because we have to tear away some of the emotionalism which gets into the area that we're addressing. So as far as the Institute is concerned, a program of sensitization, as you've outlined, I fully endorse that, and I think that would be useful. Concurrently, not secondly, but concurrently, I see linking in to the NHS Confederation and all the good work that is being done, which would be beneficial and which would mean that we become a facilitator of good practice and therefore benefiting from the exposure or the coordination, the collaboration which we're advocating. So that's my take. I think the fact that we've got this group set up, we've got a good example of the benefit of the group from the variety of views we've heard today, and so the group is not just a talking shop, but their outputs, and maybe we should in our action plan say what by the end of 2022, what would this group have achieved? What is its objectives? How is it going to achieve those objectives? And have they achieved those objectives at the end of 2022?
No, thank you for that, Peter. Daithì, thank you so much for joining today. I know you have to leave. Thank you so much. We're going to finish in the next couple of minutes. Just following on from what Peter said in terms of having that content, we have heard from those with specific learning needs. It'd be interesting to have conversations with those that may have physical needs, such as mobility issues. Also those that have come from overseas, like yourself, Peter, we've heard from you, and have some more of those experiences. There's so much content we can explore going into 2023 and beyond. Like you say, we're not just a talking shop. We are a group that has actual output that's can be practical, not just having those conversations, but actually doing something with it. I'm conscious of time, and I know that Dudley's got his hand up, so I'd like to bring him on as our co-chair, because I'm sure he's got something insightful to add to today's conversation.
I think it's great, and I think going forward, there's so much. My belief is that EDI runs through the veins of every organization. It's beyond just work, but it's also human and societal. So I think it's something that we can all learn from. And one practical tip, and one thing I do when I'm sharing and talking about allyship, is then a take home could be, I say there's potentially 7 areas of allyship that people can think of being. So 1 is a sponsor, and that's openly supporting colleagues. 2 is an advocate, where you're openly able to open up. 3 is an amplifier. 4 is an upstander. 5 is a confidant. 6 is a champion, and 7 is a scholar. And finding that you can find maybe your way around being an ally in some shape or form, which might suit you, because people always sometimes say an ally has to really stick up and be there, but there are many different types of being an ally. So I think it's just to start and then find your way, and then you can grow with where you may want to go to. But apart from that, I think it's really great that we're actually able to have this. And I think allyship is really at the core. My other word for this year has been collaboration, but it's also a part of collaborative work, that you work with people from different groups and to help show not equality, but equity, which is the other thing that we also have to think is important. So I think I'd leave it there, because I know we've only got a few minutes left.
Thank you, Dudley. And just thinking about the outputs of this group as well for the new year, we are developing an EDI short course, and we're definitely feeding those 7 areas of allyship into one of the modules. And today's discussion has been beneficial for creating that module as well. I can already think of some subheadings to go underneath that module. Thank you to Peter Ramrayka. Thank you to Kaur. Thank you to Dudley Sawyer, our co-chair, for coming on and your contributions. Thank you to Morgan Barber as well for coming on and telling us about what's happening within your trust and your region. And I'd just like to thank everybody that's been on the call listening for attending. I hope you found it very insightful, and that you know how to go and have those conversations, how to be an active ally, how to be authentic, and how to bring representation to those in your workforce as well. So you may have those that recognise themselves in you, so you know how to be an ally yourself now. Thank you so much for today's discussion. Our next meeting is on the 14th of December. We'll be joined by Daithì Biflani, who'll be talking about the Hindu way of life. I will send out a meeting reminder for that and minutes for today's meeting as well, along with this recording if you're watching on catch up. I look forward to seeing you all in December. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Jade. Bye.
Bye.